Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to a playoff edition podcast of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by our friends over at Celsius. I'm John Ledyard. Along with me is Scott Reynolds of PewterReport.com. Scott, we get to come on, and it's not just we did Victory Saturday, we did Victory Sunday, but if you think the fact that the Bucs played on Saturday is going to keep us from a Victory Monday, you got another thought coming, because the Bucs are in the playoffs, and we're having a Victory Monday here on the Pewter Report podcast.
And why not? I mean, let's keep this party going, right? We had over 6,000 viewers just on our YouTube podcast alone from Saturday. And listen, everything I've read on Twitter, everything I've heard on WDAE, Buccaneer fans are jubilant about making the playoffs for the first time since 2007. And, it's interesting because during that year, the Buccaneers had a home playoff game. They were division champions, and they lost to, I believe, the 6th seed New York Giants that year. And the Giants went on to beat the Patriots and win the Super Bowl as a 6th seed. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a home playoff game at all to win it all.
Right.
Of course, John, we both know that the Super Bowl is held at Raymond James Stadium this year. So if the Buccaneers don't have a home playoff game at all, they might be playing in the best home field situation possible, which is the Super Bowl, something that no other team has ever done. But
when was the last time that I can't even remember a scenario where the team that was hosting the Super Bowl was even in the playoffs that were going for it. I can't recall that even.
It hasn't happened yet. And let's not get ahead of ourselves, though, because Bruce Arians said today on his conference call, 11-5 is the goal. They want that number 5 seed. So we're going to dive into that, have some final thoughts as we bury and do the post-mortem of the Bucs demolition of the Lions, 47-7. And then we'll have our look-ahead show to a game against a feisty Falcons team that took Kansas City to the brink on Sunday. We'll have that on Wednesday at the podcast. But I'll tell you, John, I think it's about time we get the show on the road with our good friends from Celsius. Well, John, I'm a coffee drinker, and I usually drink coffee. And it's something that it's kind of like a religious thing for me. I see you got the Celsius heat there. They'd be the jackfruit, right?
Yep, little jackfruit.
Yeah. Well, I usually have coffee, kind of, just gets me going, wakes me up every day. I took 3 of our 4 kids to the airport for flights. It's winter break, so they're flying across the country. And they had a morning flight. The flights left around 8 o'clock. I had to have them there, around 7, which meant I had to get up at 5:30 to make sure they're up, and we're leaving by 6 to get down to the airport. So I did not want coffee that early in the morning, right? Sometimes coffee upsets my stomach a little bit, whatever. So you know what I had instead? This guy right here. Not orange juice, orange Celsius.
Right.
And this thing woke me up big time at 5:30, gave me all the energy I need. I have not had a nap yet. It's 4 o'clock, John. We're rocking and rolling here on the Pewter Report podcast. And just as you would come to expect, Celsius powers active lives every day with essential functional energy. And that's what I had today, John, at 5:30 in the morning. It was one of these Celsius, the earliest I've ever had a Celsius. And it worked. Thank God.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did not have a great night of sleep last night. So if you're a mattress provider out there, a mattress provider out there, come advertise at PewterReport.com. We've got record-setting traffic right now and the record-setting podcast numbers as well. So come advertise with us, and I will probably buy a mattress from you.
And you know what? Speaking of buying, if you want to buy Celsius, I can tell you exactly where to get it. Go to Celsius.com, click on that store locator, put in your zip code, and find the Celsius retailer near you. Publix in the Tampa Bay area has them. Target, convenience stores all across the Bay Area and also across the country too. I'm just talking here locally for the folks that live in the Tampa Bay area, but they'll ship it anywhere. And all you got to do is go to PewterReport.com, click on those Celsius banners. They'll take you to Amazon. You can buy them in bulk. And if you're not sure which kind to get the variety pack. and try a whole bunch of flavors and find the Celsius taste that fits you the best and save some money along the way.
Right. We'll tell you, when I get up like that though, and don't have any, I'm dragging or whatever to start my morning, because I get up early for my morning workout. So like I get up and I got to get after it, because then the kids are getting up. And so, and when I'm dragging like I was this morning, man, if I don't have a couple, I mean, I take one of these with me over to the gym and, drink it in the car while it helps a ton get me started. So if you're a morning workout person like I am, definitely check out Celsius. Some really great stuff. Jordan Durr, let's go. 2021 super chat donation, simply because we are in the playoffs in 2021. That's awesome stuff. And the Bucs are in the playoffs in 2021. Listen, everybody, the super chats have been unbelievable for us. Scott and I were actually just talking about how we need to talk about, look at our super chat, how many we've gotten in over the season, really, and figure out how we're going to use it to make the podcast better. So we appreciate it. It is helping take this podcast to the next level where it needs to be. Yes. If you want to donate super chat, I think it's in the bottom, like right-hand corner or something. There's a little money thing. You donate any amount that you want, I think, in there too. And yeah, just drop us something that's going to make the podcast better, going to make the content better at pewterreport.com. That's what it's all going to. So we appreciate y'all helping us keep this thing awesome. Yeah. Kicking things off on a great note. Scott, we've got a lot to talk about. We are going to get to questions. So if people have questions, I already seen a couple of them in the chat. Start dropping us some questions, and even if we don't answer them right away, don't get frustrated. We'll come back to them. We usually start with a topic and discuss things, and then we will come back through the list and try to answer as many as we can, spread out and try and tackle at least the best ones. We get a lot on these shows, and so we'll try to focus on all of them. But Scott, playoff scenarios are now, like, we've kind of almost moved on from the Lions game. There are things we'll bring up as we go through the show and as we answer questions about the Lions game. I rewatched the game once on the broadcast, and I'm going through the all 22 now, but I've seen almost the whole thing except for the fourth quarter, which I don't know how much it even mattered at that point. But there is some takeaways, but not as many. The Lions were truly pathetic, especially against the run. I mean, some of the Bucs runs were crazy. You guys were just 10 yards off the ball. You just don't see that stuff in the NFL. So, but I still think the best conversation we can start today's show off with is playoff scenarios and opponents. And just to run through the scenarios quickly, the Bucs lock into the 5 seed if they win next week, and they're playing their starters against Atlanta, so they lock into the 5 seed if they win that game. They can still get the 5 seed if they lose, and the Rams, who are playing the Cardinals, lose. Now the Rams might be without Jared Goff, who broke his thumb. Yeah. But the problem is the Cardinals might be without Kyler Murray, who hurt his leg. They just announced that. So now it might be Chris Stravler versus John Wolford for the whoever gets the playoffs there. And the Bears are laughing, but the Bucs also could have really used that Cardinals help just in case they slip up against Atlanta. And so the Cardinals might not have the advantage we maybe thought that they would. And so the Bucs those are their scenarios for the 5 seed. They can lose, but have the Rams lose, and they still get the 5 seed no matter what happens with anybody else. They could also end up with the 6 seed. They can't get any lower than the 6 seed, but if they lose and the Rams win, the Bucs would have the 6 seed. Right. All different outcomes, though. Like, there's still 3 potential teams they could play. They're playing the 4 seed. If they're the 5, if the Bucs end up as a 5 seed, they're playing the 4 seed, the winner of the NFC East. Right. But that could be Washington if Washington wins against Philadelphia on Sunday night, or it could be the winner of Dallas and New York Giants game, depending who wins that game. If Washington were to lose, whoever wins Cowboys Giants would then play the Bucs in the first round. If the Bucs are the 5 seed, the Bucs are the 6 seed. They could also play the Saints, the Packers, and Seattle, depending on who wins their games on Sunday. Now, the Saints are favored over the Panthers. The Seahawks are favored over the 49ers, and the Packers are probably, I'm sure, favored by a good bit over the Bears. Bears are playing better, but the other two seem like they should go to Seattle and should go to New Orleans. So if everything plays out as expected and those 3 teams win in those situations, I think it's the Packers. Packers would be the 1st seed, Saints would be the 2nd seed, Seattle would be the 3rd seed, and as the 6th seed, if the Bucs were to lose and the Rams were to win, the Bucs would end up playing Seattle in that situation. So hopefully you tracked with me on all of that.
Yeah. John, can you repeat that? I got a little lost.
Hopefully you tracked with me on all of that. It seems like the most likely scenarios is the Bucs are the 6th seed playing Seattle, or if they're the 5th seed, they're playing the winner of the NFC East, whoever you think that might be.
As I call it, the most NFC least.
The NFC least.
If you didn't follow John, you can go to pewterreport.com. John had a story last night. I've got a story today that wraps up the entire playoff picture. So you can read it over and get a visual from it there. But listen, I think that we heard from Bruce Arians today. This team wants to finish 11-5. They want that 5 seed. They want to play the winner of the really
NFC least.
The division nobody wants to win.
He didn't say that though. Bruce didn't say anything about wanting to play the winner. I don't know where you're getting that, Scott.
Well, I mean, that's where 25 years of reading between the lines in these press conferences comes into play. He wants to play, and you know why, John? It's real simple. Because whoever that is, if it's Dallas, if it's the Giants, if it is, I almost said the Redskins. Sorry, old habits die hard. The Washington football team. Whoever it is going to have a losing record. And it's a damn shame that the NFL is in such a state where they're allowing teams with shitty records, with losing records. It burns me up because you could have a team that wins 10 games, like the Buccaneers back in 2010. They didn't make the playoffs, and I'm not saying that they should have necessarily, but that was a year I believe Seattle was 7-9, and it just. I don't think that. I think to qualify for the playoffs, whether you're a division winner or not, you have to be at least 500. I can put up with a 500 record, but a losing record is just ridiculous, especially when nobody wants to win it. And the thing is, the Buccaneers, John, with the Las Vegas Raiders losing, the Raiders now have a losing record. Now the Buccaneers are 9-0 against teams with losing records, including the Detroit Lions, who they beat on Saturday.
Right. I mean, we are confirmed, as you mentioned. I think that there's going to be a team with a losing record that wins the NFC East, which is crazy and is ridiculous. I'm fine for valuing divisions to a point, but we cannot be valuing them to the point that teams with losing records are hosting games. Luckily, like you said, the Bucs are good against teams with losing records this year. They have not, for the most part, played down to competition, and they are good on the road this season. So neither are huge concerns or will be major talking points for us really leading into the game. The bigger question is, Scott, that I have for you is who would you most want them to play? If you could pick Washington, Dallas, and the Giants, who do you think they match up with maybe out of those three teams the best?
I would say Washington, because their offense doesn't scare me one bit. They have a hard time putting points on the board. Now, their defensive line, when they're on with Chase Young and Jonathan Allen and Ryan Kerrigan, I mean, it's a host of first-round draft picks across the front there. Montez Sweat from Mississippi State. So they've got a lot of talent there. And the Buccaneers have struggled when it comes to facing teams with good defensive lines. The Rams, the Bears, the Saints, the Chiefs, all of those teams made Tom Brady uncomfortable and sacked him and intercepted him. And so in my opinion, if the offensive line comes to play, if the tight ends and backs block and give Brady time, and they put up enough points on the board, which honestly against the Washington football team might be 21 points. I don't see the WFT having the firepower to be able to come back. Now the Cowboys can put points on the board, right? They've got a trio of very talented wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb, the rookie. They've got I'm drawing a blank. Who's their star receiver?
Terry McLaurin. Oh, are you talking about the Cowboys?
Cowboys, yeah.
Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb.
Cooper, thank you. Yes, Amari Cooper. Old man moment there. Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. So that's a group that can put points on the board. That the Cowboys defense doesn't really scare me that much. The Giants, I'm not really afraid of them, other than they committed to the run. I thought Jason Garrett came with a very good game plan against the Buccaneers, and they kind of exposed the Bucs' run defense a little bit. And I think that any of those teams, I think the Buccaneers can beat. But I would say Washington is the team that I'm probably least concerned of. John, how about you?
Giants are the team I'm least concerned about because I don't think their offensive line can really play, and that group was better for a little bit of time, including the last time the Bucs played them, but they've really struggled again in recent weeks. They seem to have a quarterback. I don't know if controversy is the right word or just no solution at that position at all. They don't have really a veteran. I know they have Colt McCoy there, but they don't have a guy to lean on who's done it. Alex Smith's done it, and so if Washington has him back, I still feel better about Washington. Washington's defense is truly outstanding. I know they haven't necessarily played the best offenses recently, but I mean, they held the Browns to 9 points, the Cowboys to 16 points. That's a good offense. The Steelers, I know their offense was reeling, but to 17 points. The 49ers to 15 points. Seattle to 20 points. Panthers to 20 points. And one of those, I think, was a special teams touchdown, I'm pretty sure, for Carolina on a muff punt.
It's a Ron Rivera unit, you know? I mean,
like, they've literally been amazing, like, this season. Yeah. I mean, and they don't have, like, nobody, I mean, they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody, you know what I mean? They just have a bunch of guys, like, other than their D-line. Like, their linebackers aren't anything to write home about. Their safeties are, like, undrafted guys, you know what I mean? It's just a great scheme. And so they really have a good unit. I don't feel like the Giants really have a good unit. But also, I don't think the Giants – I'll be shocked if they beat Dallas, and I'll be shocked. To be honest, Dallas is the scariest team to me, and I'll tell you why. Because they have legitimate firepower on offense. 3 wide receivers that are truly, really good players. Yeah. Amari Cooper is a difference maker. He is the type of receiver the Bucs have struggled this season. Guys that can create as route runners. I think Calvin Ridley. I can think Tyreek Hill. They're not having so many problems with big X receivers on the outside type, but guys who can play all over, can separate at the top of the routes. They don't have corners that defend that well in those situations. And he is outstanding. And Gallup is a guy who's coming along. CeeDee Lamb has been unbelievable in the slot as a rookie. I mean, that's the team that's scary. You know, it is. I mean, it doesn't mean you don't want them, you know, over some of the other teams in the NFC playoff picture, but they can produce on offense. Again, Dalton has not done it in the playoffs. We know that he's never won a playoff game. And so there is that working against them. If they get pressure on Andy Dalton, it's probably curtains, and the Cowboys' offensive line is not great. But the Cowboys do have a good defensive line. And you mentioned that
line has just been decimated with injuries.
Right. They've been crushed. Yeah, for sure. And so I that up on the other side of the ball, I think, okay, Cowboys defensive line is a group that could impact the game a little bit. DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory's having a good year since he's been back. So their defense is playing better. It's still not a good unit. Right. You know, like I said, on paper, the Bucs still should win, but it would be the scariest potential matchup to me. So if I'm, you know, I don't truly care, because I'm saying any scenario, the Bucs should win and should be favored. And they need to get the job done. So it's not an excuse for anything, but I would prefer out of the options to see the Giants come out of it. If not the Giants, then Washington, because like you, I'm just not sure. I mean, Terry McLaurin's hurt right now too. I don't even know what state he'll be in. They just don't have a lot of offensive firepower, even though I think they're pretty well coached and don't make many mistakes right now.
John, we talked about who they might play, who we would want to see them play if they held on to that 5 seed. Greg DeCruz coming with a super chat for us. When do you think the Bucs will play on Wild Card Weekend? I'm thinking Saturday night in prime time. I think either Saturday night or Sunday afternoon. I think one of those 2 prime time slots, if you will, is when they'll try to put Tom Brady in the Buccaneers.
Yikes! Not Saturday night, please. No night games.
I know, right?
Do it, Scott. What happens to this team at night? Oh, man.
Well, at some point in time, they got to get over it, John, because if they want to get to the Super Bowl, they can't petition to have the Super Bowl start at 1:00. It's not going to happen.
That's right. But I will say it's interesting. The playoffs only, in the playoffs, normal windows, there's only like, I don't know, unless you count 4:30, 3:30 games as night games. I don't know. Whether we could do that or not, but no, I think that this, there's only one night game, and the Bucs probably get put in it with their luck, and so we'll see how that unfolds. An interesting question here, and we appreciate that, Haas Wajuk. Always appreciate you tuning in and checking into the podcast. Now, Angela says, what team in the NFC would be the best to beat the Saints in the playoffs so we don't have to play them? I like this question for a couple reasons. Number one, this is the important thing to think about because matchups matter, especially in the playoffs. Number two, I really think the Saints are the worst matchup for the Bucs, right? Like, I mean, they have multiple guys who can cover man-to-man. They switch up their coverages a ton. Look at what they did to Mahomes. I mean, they switch up their coverage shells. There's just not easy to game plan anything. I think the Bucs will have a better game plan than they had last time, hopefully. But they can get pressure with 4. They can blitz. Their linebackers can cover. They kind of have all the pieces to defend you. And then, oh, by the way, what the Bucs do on defense, or have trended to do on defense, has been like a horrible fit for what how the Saints like to attack. And so, they would have to play way better defensively to have a chance. They are not putting up 35 points on the Saints defense, I don't think, and that's fine, but the defense has to show up. Last time they didn't even show up, and so the offense was in a bad situation basically from the start of the game. And so, that's the key in that situation. Which team in the NFC would be the best to beat the Saints in the playoffs? Scott, this is why I want the Rams still in the playoffs. I can't believe we're literally talking about a Rams team that might not make the playoffs because they lost to the Jets, and the Browns are in the same thing in the AFC, by the way. Yeah. But I really feel like the Rams are still a good team, and maybe they're not as good as I thought they were a few weeks ago, and that's mainly just because of Jared Goff. When he's great, though, you never know when that's going to come for him, where he could snap in and have a great game, and the defense is outstanding. I think they could shut down a lot of what the Saints do, and they get a break here or there, they get a return, something like that. I think they could win a low-scoring game against the Saints. I don't think the Cardinals or the Bears have a prayer. I know the Bears played them close early in the season, but come on. I mean, the Bears aren't – not this Saints defense, man. The Bears aren't doing anything against them. Cardinals are just too up and down as a team. I don't see how they threaten the Saints, really. To me, it's the Rams or bust in terms of teams that could beat the Saints in the first round. Yeah, I really haven't given this much thought, but I think really what the Saints have to look out for are the refs more than anything. They've gotten absolutely jobbed. They really have.
As in back-to-back years as a 13-3 home playoff game, NFC South champion. They've beaten themselves in some instances, and they've put themselves in position where they've gotten beat by the officials with a couple of calls. The Rams 2 years ago, last year was with the Vikings, right? Mm-hmm. Came in and beat
Vikings, them. Yeah, push off Kyle Rudolph in the end zone, clear push off, and that. Yeah,
and then 2 years before that, it was the Vikings in the
that was a self-inflicted one, but yes.
Yeah. So really, the Saints. It's interesting because the Saints are the bully, right? They've got the bully mentality over the Buccaneers. They don't fear Tampa Bay at all.
Right.
And I think they're in the Bucs' head a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. And at some point in time, you got to rise up against the bully, and you got to punch the bully in the mouth and beat him, even if it's on their own turf. We saw the Bucs have to do that many, many moons ago in 2002 against the Philadelphia Eagles at the Vet. Thanks to Rondé Barber and company, they did. But I wonder. The Saints have been here before, right? I mean, they're in double-digit wins, won the division 4th year in a row.
Oh yeah,
and you have to wonder if, and the reason why bullies are bullies is because there's something wrong inside, right? Whether it's the heart, the mind, whatever. Mm-hmm. They pick on other people because of self-deficiencies, right? That's kind of the MO of bullying.
Insecurities, right?
Insecurities, and you have to wonder how insecure the Saints are.
Wow. Look at this parallel.
I'm just saying, right? Okay. It's like you have to wonder now that the Saints are in it again and have another home field game, and at least in round one.
Is it in their heads?
Is it in their heads? And it's going to be interesting to see because the Saints have been a team that has woefully underachieved in the playoffs, and also to the pressure, John. The pressure. Everybody in that Saints locker room knows it's not going to be the same Saints team next year. Drew Brees isn't going to be on it. Drew Brees is going to be done. He's going to be broadcasting games next year. So this is their last shot, the last hurrah before they blow it up. They're $93 million over the salary cap next year. By far the worst cap situation of any team. So having said that, do they use
that? And that's not counting Drew Brees, by the way. He's a free agent, so he's not in that factor for any fans that might be thinking, oh, well, he retired. No.
Yeah, or if you just cut Brees, you save the money. No, he's not. He's not on the cap. So do the Saints use this last hurrah opportunity to finally put it all together and do what they did, in 2005? I think was it 2005 they won the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Katrina?
No, it was later than that. 2009, I want to say.
Okay. Or do the Saints just implode because of the pressure once again?
Right. I mean, that's the storyline that every Saints fan is kind of wondering. It feels like the Saints haven't really played that poorly in the playoffs. They've just, like you said, like it's been like really freak things. Like, when they were going to that game against Minnesota, I don't think anybody was like, oh, the Saints will win by 50. And then, that ends up being a close game late. I just think, they had it and they let it go in that game, and then the other two was kind of like, like you said, clearly they should have been in the Super Bowl against the Patriots and they probably would have beat them that year. That to me was one of the hardest swallow moments. I mean, I'm not no Saints fan, obviously, not even before I worked for Pewter Report, but there was probably, as just a pure football fan who actually, I think in that I like the Rams and I've always liked Sean McVay. So I think I was actually kind of rooting for the Rams in that game at the time. Yeah. But I was just like, oh my gosh, this is wrong. Like this is very wrong, and so yeah, that was one of those moments that, man, just they've been in it, they've been there, and they've, I think, even been the better team at times, and it hasn't mattered. And so will they get the job done now when Drew Brees is as limited as he is? Scott, I don't think people realize. I know Drew Brees has played a couple less games, I think 4 less games than Tom Brady this season, but just using Brady as a comparison, Brady has thrown the most deep ball attempts in the league this season, 20 plus yards or more in the air, and he's completed the most in the league. This is updated stats after all yesterday's games came in. He's attempted the most and completed the most. Drew Brees has attempted, I think Brady's attempted like 82. Drew Brees has attempted 24 on the season, and he's completed 10, Scott. So they really are only throwing the ball down the field if it's wide open. Like, they've got to scheme it wide open. There is nothing like the Bucs offense. You could not have 2 different quarterbacks right now at this point in their careers and going in different directions. One is making smart throws a lot of the time, but the easiest throws on the field consistently. The other one is making the highest degree of difficulty throws on the field. But then it's about the Saints offense too, that is consistently scheming up great scenarios for the quarterback. And the Bucs offense is moving in that direction over the last couple of weeks, which is really exciting to see. And now we'll just have to see what a larger sample size tells us.
You know what else is exciting to see? This $2.99 super chat from Logan. So we greatly appreciate that. And Anthony Pap 1 says, is there any way to send super chats on Periscope? Only through YouTube. It's only through YouTube. However, if you want to make a donation to pewterreport.com, you can go to pewterreport.com/donation. And we've got a couple options. You can click on the one-time donation for as little as $10 or any denomination you want, really. Or you can become a monthly donor where you can give as little as $3 a month or as much as $9 a month. To help our efforts here at pewterreport.com bring you the best Bucs coverage possible, not just in the regular season, John, but in the playoffs. So we appreciate all of the money that the Buccaneer fans have been giving us, and the Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers have been bestowing upon us. And John, that's not the only way that we get money around here. You know that, right?
That's true.
Because you know who was smart enough to bet big on the Bucs over the Lions this week? This guy. You know where I did it? You know where I did it?
My bookie.
Of course, did it at my bookie. And listen, every sports fan knows it's not about how you start the season. It's about how you finish. Just take that Falcons game a couple weeks ago, right? They started awful, 17-0 in the hole, and they finished with a flurry, 31 points in the second half to beat the Falcons 31-27. At my bookie, 2020 finishes strong with NFL, college bowl games, the return of the NBA, NHL right around the corner. Sign up today and receive a halfway deposit match up to $1,000. And while you're at it, ring in the holidays with 6 days of giveaways. You heard it here first. From December 21st through the 26th, MyBookie was hooking players up with free bets, casino chips, blackjack tournaments, huge cash prizes all week long. What do they have in store for 2021? Check out the website, mybookie.ag, and find out. To get in on the action, it's simple. Sign up, make your first deposit, enter the promo code PEWTER, claim your bonus, and start taking advantage of all of the winning opportunity you're going to have at MyBookie. Head over to MyBookie to discover a bunch of on-site promotions to ring in the new year. And listen, the holiday season is still here. Bet with the best. Bet with MyBookie. Use promo code PEWTER, John. That's promo code PEWTER, and place your bets and ring in the new year in style with some cash in your pocket, just like I did.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way to go. And the Bucs definitely made you a happy man in multiple ways, actually, on Saturday. Yes. And so that is pretty awesome. Definitely head over to MyBookie and clean up this last week, week 17 of the regular season and into the playoffs as well. Somebody mentioned retiring Drew Brees, the Bucs retiring Drew Brees. I mean, obviously that would be a pretty great moment for Tampa Bay fans. Easier said than done. Hossway Duke is a good point.
That would be like in 2002 when the Bucs closed down the vet, right?
That's right. Yeah, it would be similar to that, type of moment. Only probably more personal for Bucs fans that have been victimized by him. Hossway Duke asks, is the answer against the Saints offense to just play cover one press? And, it's interesting. Everybody will compare the Steelers offense and the Saints offense. Obviously, people found a way to solve the Steelers offense for the most part until the Colts messed it up the other night, but they really found ways to like basically disrupt everything that the Steelers were doing and force them to throw the ball down the field. Steelers got a bunch of penalties the other day, and they hit 2 of those passes, and so it was enough. But I think the Colts' philosophy for most of that game was pretty good, and you could see how out of sorts the Bucs were or the Steelers were. And so I think with the Saints, it's a little bit different. I do think the answer is to play more man coverage. The worst thing you could possibly do is do what the Bucs did last game, as evidenced by the numbers, by eyes, by logic, anything. Like you can't spot drop into zones against Drew Brees. That'll get you killed quick. But the other thing is when you're playing press man against the Saints, they have a ton of man beaters. So you're going to have to communicate and work through them and get physical with guys at the line of scrimmage. That would seem to be the MO of the Bucs corner. So again, it seems like it's a good fit. You have to try it. You're not going to get a stop every single play against them. You're just not. Right. But again, that's the way to do it. And then you have to come up, I think, with pressures that the Saints haven't seen before. Brees can't sit back all day. He's too smart. He'll see it. He'll pick it apart. He's not going to make a mistake more than anything back there. He doesn't take bad sacks and doesn't throw picks under pressure. So you have to find a way to disrupt him at least a few times in the game, and you have to accept the fact that you're probably not going to do it with 4. The Bucs went in last game and they said we're going to get pressure with 4. Their 4 is good, but it's not as good as the Saints offensive line. Saints offensive line is dominant, especially at the tackle positions. And so I think that is going to be the key to the game, is drawing up a couple pressures that create mistakes and put the Saints behind the 8 ball on offense, and then being able to defensively match up with their receivers, who again, they're good receivers across the board. Especially Michael Thomas is back for the playoffs. So even with Brees limitations, I mean, everywhere else, they're probably best roster in the NFC other than the quarterback position. If you're ranking quarterbacks in the NFC, there's no way they're in the top 4, for quarterbacks. They're just not. And so that's where their limitation comes in compared to the other teams. And so we'll see how it all evens out. There's not just one straight answer. Obviously, you're not playing cover 1 every single snap, but if you're playing 2 high safeties against the Saints, I really think you're doing it wrong.
It's a waste too, and you really can't afford to do that because Kamara, although he's not the best runner, he certainly showed that he can put touchdowns on the board and carry the ball when needed. And I think sometimes you do have to get an extra guy in the box down there and take that away. John, as Greg DeCruz points out, in 2002, the Bucs lost to the Saints twice, still won the Super Bowl. So
lots of people talked about that after that second. Bucs loss. I didn't know about that, obviously.
And the thing is this, I'm in total agreement with you. I love playing press man coverage, especially with the corners that the Bucs have. There is not a speed guy on the Saints anymore. Emmanuel Sanders is a shell of his former self. He's not a 4-4 guy like he used to be. Michael Thomas is a possession receiver. And, you look at, they used to have the likes of Ted Ginn, right? I mean, they don't have that deep threat anymore where you have to double a wide receiver with the safety help over the top. In my opinion, you want to be physical. And the way to get to Brees and force him into mistakes and sack him is to get him to hold on to the ball. So if you can jam those guys at the line of scrimmage to where it disrupts the timing between the quarterback and the receiver, that's how you pressure Brees into making mistakes and getting to him. So to me, that's the MO. But
we're getting way ahead of ourselves, by the way.
But at the same time, we're doing our due diligence. We're answering questions.
The best thing is that it's pretty unlikely that they would, unless the Packers blow it against the Bears, it's pretty unlikely. And, again, you'd have to figure out the seeding, but the Saints are probably the least likely other than the Packers round 1 opponent. And then if, the Saints and Seahawks finish the 2 and 3 seeds and they win and the Bucs win, then you would be talking about the Bucs going to play Green Bay and the Saints and Seahawks playing each other. So the Saints seem like right now, unless unexpected things happen, which always is possible in the NFL, the least likely team for the Bucs to face until the NFC Championship game at that point. So a couple opportunities for somebody else to get the job done. But honestly, we talk about these things because I know the fans think about them and they like to hear about them. But honestly, Scott, I'm really of the opinion, I know you probably share this thought too, is that you get into the playoffs, you got to beat teams. It doesn't matter who you play. Everybody's going to talk about, they won one playoff game, they didn't win any playoff game. It doesn't really matter. If you win one against Washington or Dallas, everybody's going to say, Washington and Dallas, that doesn't even count, and then, so it doesn't matter. You got to beat a good team eventually anyway. So who cares if you play them in the first? That's why I don't particularly care if the Bucs end up with the 6th seed and they have to play Seattle instead of Dallas. Obviously, I'd rather play Dallas if I'm them, but at the end of the day, you got to beat a good team to get to where you're going. It doesn't really matter if it happens in the first round or the next round, in my opinion.
John, we got a question from Eric Cullison, good friend of the pod here. If Carlton Davis is healthy, does the team make the move to Dean on the outside and Cockrel in the slot? That means SMB goes to the bench, if you're reading Eric's question correctly. So what would you do, John? Have you seen enough of Sean Murphy-Bunting? And have you seen Ross Cockrel, where you want to see him in the slot over SMB?
Yeah, no, I want Ross Cockrel to play. I mean, there's no doubt. You just evaluate everything evenly, and who's been the better player, and it's clearly been Cockrel. And so I don't think SMB is like totally hopeless. There were some good things about the Lions game. There were some things that if there had been a better quarterback, better receivers, it would not have been a great day for him. I mean, his lack of ball skills astounds me. I mean, I don't know how he didn't make a play at the end of that half on that ball. I know that floater out there, which, by the way, JPP literally had 3 sacks yesterday, and they were all one. Like I think the quarterback might have been down at that one at the end of the half. Yeah. And he didn't get the call. I couldn't see it from the all 22 angles. Then he had the one Golston got there a millisecond before him and took the quarterback down as JPP was getting. Then he had the one where he got juked out by David Blau, and that's on him. But he literally could have had a 3-sack day. He was great.
He could have had a 3-sack day and a pick 6 if he would have.
Oh, and a pick 6. You're right. Like it was like the most missed opportunity. I got to do a thread on that on Twitter because he literally had. Yeah. I mean, he had NFC Player of the Week. He wrapped up
right there in his hands, and
he did, and it just completely like
John, all the opportunities. It's a Bucs Victory Monday Q&A. Well, let's keep the questions coming. Long lost leisure, John. Is Raheem Morris heady enough to go all out on doubling and bracketing Mike Evans every play? Would suck to see him get the Megatron treatment. I don't care if they double team him, triple team him. The Buccaneers are going to manufacture ways to get Mike the ball. We even saw him get the wide receiver screen, something that's typically reserved for Scotty Miller,
a couple of those,
Brown, and Chris Godwin. So even if you got to throw that play, at the Falcons 8 times for 5 yards a pop, get those 40 yards any way you can. So I think they can manufacture, even if they're force feeding him 8 wide receiver screens for 5-yard gains, they're going to get Mike Evans the 40 yards he needs to reach 1,000. Double or triple teams be damned, John.
Yeah, I mean, these games are so annoying, Scott, to be honest. Like, I mean, I want Evans to get 1,000 too, but I mean, just think about it from a coach perspective. Like, you really want to be healthy. Like, really, I mean, you could say what you want. The 5th or 6th seed, it doesn't matter compared to your health. But you also want to play. You want to keep your edge, and it's a division rival, and you want to get to 11-5. I agree with them. 11-5 looks a lot better than 10-6. But again, compared to the 5th or 6th seed, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? So you have to weigh all of this stuff. And then, oh, by the way, you're trying to get Mike Evans 1,000 yards. The other team knows it because you've said it, obviously. So normally it's just there's one agenda every week, win the game. But no matter what they say, there are clearly other agendas this week. I mean, Carlton Davis isn't 100%. If this is a Super Bowl, he's playing. If it's not, it's not. He's probably not, and you probably shouldn't play. Like you shouldn't put anybody who's banged up. And so you have to weigh all these things as a coach. Like, who am I resting? Who's healthy enough to go where I don't look like I'm not trying in this game, and everybody else thinks I'm winning. And oh, by the way, the playoff game in 2 weeks is going to be way more important. So there are just so many things going on. I can't stand games like this because if they lose, everybody will want to be crazy. But I don't know how much stock to put into it. But I also think losing where your focus is all over the place doesn't prepare you all for the next game. So just go out there and win, to be honest. And I hope you find a way to get Mike Evans 1,000. I agree. I don't think Raheem Morris is going to bracket Mike. I mean, he's just going to get killed by other people. There's not. So situationally, maybe, but
as Hosswide Juke says, how do you guys feel about this upcoming Falcons matchup? Was a close call last time. They played KC tough too. We'll get more into that on Wednesday, but really quick, I got to give the Falcons a lot of credit. I mean, yes, they don't know how to close games. They choke. They've mastered that, the ability to choke. Like I've said before, they could teach a master class in choking. That's just the Atlanta Falcons for you. And it's unfortunate that Raheem Morris couldn't turn that corner with this Falcons team. If you're an Atlanta fan, I could care less if they ever turn the corner, in my opinion. I've never really liked the Falcons outside of when Deion Sanders and the Dirty Birds were there. I liked them during that little playoff run they had with Andre Bad Moon Rising and Chris Miller at quarterback. That was kind of a fun underdog team to watch. But if the Falcons are the perennial NFC South doormat, it's fine with me. But I do have to applaud how tough they're playing. I mean, this is not the Detroit Lions, John, right? I mean, they took Kansas City, Young Ho Koo, their kicker, who's normally reliable, misses a kick that would have tied the game for him right there at the end. And
the Chargers of the NFC.
Yeah. I mean, the Falcons will play you tough. They're not going to come in and lie down like the Lions did. And you have to give them credit. So I think it's going to be a close game. I do.
I mean, this is what's crazy about Atlanta is there is almost no way to you can't make this stuff up. They're playing the Saints in a close game. I know it's the Saints without Brees twice, but I mean, you're playing the Saints close. The Saints are still a good team even without Brees. I mean, you can argue that they did a lot of things offensively that they didn't do with them in there, and they held them. Their defense is playing way better. I mean, they held the Saints 4 points, 21 points. They whooped the Raiders in a good offense. They whipped them 43-6. I mean, they held the Raiders 6 points. They have done some good things without that much talent. They're playing the Saints close twice, they held the Bucs scoreless for half, then got destroyed. I mean, we looked at that and kind of okay, the Bucs did what they had to do against a bad defense. I'm not so sure that's the case. The Falcons have legitimately been a good defense, and I probably didn't put enough stock into this going into the last game. Watching them against the Chiefs, I was like, man, this group, they probably forced Patrick Mahomes into his worst game as an NFL player. I mean, when it's all said and done, that might be the greatest quarterback of all time against the defense with a bunch of dudes. I mean, they don't have anybody, So I don't know. I don't know what to make of Atlanta, and I don't know if maybe I should be putting way more stock into the fact that the Bucs scored 31 points and a half and basically did whatever they wanted against Atlanta, because that might look a lot more impressive, to be honest.
No, you're exactly right. So
that's crazy.
As this Bucs Victory Monday Q&A train continues, Nate Pitts got a Trevor question for you. Would you rather take a punch in the face from Tyson Barry handed? Are we talking about Tyson Barry, or are we talking about Mike Tyson here? Or a hit in the ribs?
Tyson barehanded.
Okay.
From Mike Tyson barehanded.
A hit in the ribs with the baseball bat from Griffey Jr. I'm taking the shot to the ribs every time. Because
it's not
and I don't need this messed up any more than it already is. So
you can't. Yeah. Plus, I mean, that you're talking about your brain potentially being affected there.
Right.
Your ribs.
Sure. Well,
you can probably recover from.
I'm 48. Drew Brees is 41. If he can come back in a couple weeks and play football with 11 broken ribs, I like my chances of typing stories and doing a podcast with some broken ribs. Otherwise, I might not be able to do the Pewter Report podcast if my nose is all bashed in, my teeth are knocked out, and I've got black eyes. So
that is very much a Trevor question, though. So
that is. So that's Nate Pitts. How about you, John? The ribs? You're taking the ribs?
Oh, I'm taking the ribs all the way. Yeah, no question. Nate also asked, would the Bucs welcome GMC back in a Tampa return? Filled this one, Scott, because I mean, I think I know where you're going, but
no,
not going to happen. That's right. He's hurt too, anyway. I forget what his injury was, but he's definitely hurt right now. Do the Bucs ever use banjo coverage? Would be a good answer versus rubs, but it's hard to execute. Yeah, every team should have banjo calls.
Yeah,
and that's basically, for people who don't know, that's basically when you're in press man and you need to communicate switches on rubs, and so if the outside receiver goes in, we're going to switch it, and you have to kind of play a little bit staggered from each other to do it smoothly. And so usually give a banjo call pre-snap to determine those things. I mean, every team should use it. The Bucs really haven't played enough press man this season to run into it's not like I've seen it a lot on tape where they don't know what they're doing in these situations. That hasn't really been a big issue for them. But yes, if they switch schemes against the Saints, it would be an issue for sure, I would think, because they definitely would run into that and need to communicate. They used to run
it quite a bit, believe it or not, back in the Monty Kiffin days when Joe Barry was the linebacker coach for the Buccaneers. He used to run banjo a pretty decent amount.
Right.
The Buccaneers didn't always play Tampa too. It wasn't like in every single down staple, especially later as the years rolled on.
Right, for sure. Eric wants to know if Carlton Davis is healthy. Oh, yeah, I already asked this one about the move at cornerback. By the way, I really think we're not talking enough about it. Jason Light bringing in Ross Cockrell. I don't know if when everybody's healthy, I don't know how much he'll play and if it'll make an impact, but it's the kind of signing that can make an impact. If somebody goes down, it can save you, because he's a legitimate top 3 type of corner for a team. this team had nothing at depth at corner.
Right.
They went and grabbed him off the street, and he's been – I mean, you could make an argument he's been their second best corner. I know the sample size is smaller, but he's certainly been their second most consistent corner. There's no question there.
And the thing, too, is it's a move similar to trading for Steve McClendon, right? I mean, and McClendon has done his job. He just filled in for that body. There hasn't been the level of play, certainly, that Vita Vea had, right, in terms of pushing the pocket, helping with the pass rush. And obviously neither McClendon nor Raheem Nunez-Rochester are nearly as stout as Vita Vea. But last time I looked, Tampa Bay's run defense still tops, and by a pretty wide margin. Now, do teams really want to run on the Buccaneers? Do they kind of just give up before they even try? Yeah, they kind of do. But at the same time,
Lions didn't down 20-0.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, the Bucs 77.5 yards per game. The next team is the Colts at 92.9. So Tampa Bay has a wide lead there. And credit to Leif for going out and making that trade for McClendon, for bringing in Ross Cockrel, a veteran player, to help steady this cornerback group. He gets a lot of props from me for the job he's done, not just prior to the season, not just right at the beginning of the season, bringing in someone like Fournette, but also coming through with a couple of in-season moves that help the team.
That's the thing, man. Those types of moves, if you got your eyes – I mean, I remember the Steelers picking up Joe Haden right before the season started after he was a late cut by the Browns. Most people thought he was done, and he's been great for the Steelers for years now, and it's been huge because they couldn't draft corners. They were bad at it every single year, and they picked him up right before the season. A lot of people thought he was done and that he was going to end up being an early retiree because he couldn't run anymore, and he's resurrected his career in Pittsburgh, been great. Earned a second contract there. And so that was one of the biggest moves. And it was an afterthought kind of at the time, other than the fact that he was a name and a former first rounder. Most people didn't think it would work out the way that it has. And it's been a life. So those kind of moves, man, Cockrel might not be on that level, but it's huge to have a guy like that. It's already been huge for them. If they're smart and they end up, if they get into the playoffs and they get toasted because SMB's out there, if they get, like they have in several, I mean, look, if they had replaced SMB in the Atlanta game, we wouldn't be talking about no 31-point comeback, whatever, 20, whatever comeback it was. Like that wouldn't be the storyline. Like I mean, he was literally getting just destroyed every snap, and they wouldn't. And I know Carlton got hurt, but again, you got to make adjustments, and you got to. So anyway,
here's a question. This is AFC. We talked a lot about the NFC, obviously. Do you think the Chiefs get upset in the playoffs? If so, by who? I don't think the Chiefs are a lock for the Super Bowl this year. I think
certainly aren't playing very sharp.
Right. If Cleveland is hitting on all cylinders offensively, and their defense can get to Mahomes a little bit, Myles Garrett, that running game is dangerous.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
They just lost to the Jets, Scott. I know they have the COVID issues.
So the Rams. Yeah. Trust me. If they didn't have COVID, I think they would have handled the Jets. But them, Baltimore, there are some teams. Buffalo, maybe.
Buffalo's the one I was. Honestly, Scott, here's the thing with the Chiefs. They really haven't played that sharp. Buffalo's played better over the last month. I just don't know if it matters. I mean, the Chiefs didn't even play that well in the playoffs last year, and they won the Super Bowl. Like, how many teams can ever say? You know what I mean? Like, they got down like 20-some points every game, and they won. I mean, it's just I don't know whether it matters whether the Chiefs play well. Like, Patrick Mahomes played horrendous the other day.
Yeah.
And he has like 16 drop picks this season, I saw. I mean, that luck usually eventually catches up with you. But if you pick one off against them and score, that just makes them more aggressive. And when they're more aggressive, they're at their deadliest. And so they're hard to solve for sure. So I think that the Bills could beat them for sure.
I agree.
They're probably the only one I would think could beat them, but. Yeah.
Here's a quick, easy answer for this one. I think you'll agree with me. Tom Brady going to leave the team? No. I think Brady retires as a Buccaneer, whether it's after this season, if he wins the Super Bowl, or next year, or if he stays for 2 more years. I think this is his one and only other team aside from the Patriots. John, right? For
sure. It's on YouTuber 111111. That might be a bot right there. Big name cornerbacks in free agency this offseason from Nate Pitts. I would have to look. I'm not there yet, but
they're not going to sign one.
I was going to say, they're not going to position.
We'll draft another one. but they're not going to sign one because the money that they're going to pay is to Carlton Davis after his last year. So they'll pay Carlton in 2022 if he continues to play at a really high level. They still have Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting.
Okay.
I think you need to add another corner into the mix because you can't keep all three once those guys hit.
Right.
If Dean ascends to that level, then your other corners for depth, cornerbacks 3 and 4 and 5 on your team need to be on rookie deals, because if you're going to have your cap tied up with two expensive cornerbacks and Dean and Davis going forward, and we'll see if that ends up happening.
Well, to me, I don't think that, I don't think it's a big deal right now, to be honest. I know I've ripped on Sean Murphy-Bunting a good bit, but I mean, Jamel Dean's shown enough promise that you want to go into next season with him as an option. You want to keep, obviously, Murphy-Bunting's still going to be around. You're going to, they're going to go into next season, I'm sure, whether they should or shouldn't, thinking about those three guys, they're top guys. And then if you can get Ross Cockrel back, here and sell him, hey, you can compete for this nickel job. And frankly, you outplayed the guy, last year, come back on a short deal. I mean, he was on the street, he wasn't on anybody's roster. And so maybe he wants to do that, a veteran with a window to maybe win. I think that could be appealing to him for cheap. And so that's an option, I think, for them. And they roll into next season with these as their top 4. And I'm fine with that, honestly, because Dean has the promise to be the other outside guy, to be honest, if he can just play consistently. You want to go in year 3 hoping to get the best out of him. And I think if SMB struggles, you're more likely to turn to Cockrel after a full offseason and training camp to evaluate and know what both guys are bringing to the table. In year 3, you want to be like, all right, this is time. If SMB's not showing up now, we're going to bench you. And so I think that could be okay. And honestly, they don't probably, if they bring back the guys we think and they'll bring back, which leads into this question, how likely do you guys think it is that Godwin and AB are on the roster next season? AB's not going to be, and Godwin probably is. So if you bring back Godwin and David and trying to bring back Barrett, there's just no way that you're going to pay another corner, so it's just the way that it is.
Yep, exactly. Here's one. Patrick Peterson. No. Patrick Peterson will be 31 next year. He's going to want too much money. He's not going to get anything.
He's terrible. He's gone destroyed this season. I don't know what happened, man. Corners just fall off the map. It's crazy.
As much as Jason Light and Bruce Arians like Patrick Peterson and really respect the guy and the player in his former greatness, they've had multiple chances to get Tyrann Mathieu and haven't done so. So and they love Mathieu, but it just because you sometimes you can connect those dots, but it doesn't end up going anywhere. So.
Right. I mean, and Patrick Peterson, again, if he were younger and if he were trending, if he weren't trending in the complete wrong direction like he is this season, maybe, but he's going to be 31 after, by the time next season rolls around, and he's frankly just been horrible this year. I don't know what happened, but some of those guys, Xavier Rhodes, same thing. I mean, he's been a little bit better in Indy, but that scheme is so corner friendly. So I just think it's not going to happen. He'll probably want too much, and he's probably not going to get it, to be honest, many places. So, do the Bucs feel their next head coach is already on the staff, Scott? Oh, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, thank you, Robert Farmer, for the super chat. We appreciate the $10 very much, Eric. They do. Right now, it would be Todd Bowles, and then who would replace him as the defensive coordinator? Because just like when he became the head coach of the Jets, Bowles would not be the play caller, but it wouldn't be Casey Rogers, who was the play caller in New York. I think that they would go to Larry Foote, the outside linebackers coach. He is a coordinator in waiting, according to Bruce Arians. Very, very smart, cerebral guy. Played many years in Pittsburgh. John, you've seen him as a linebacker there. The thing that's interesting about Larry is he's the only player that has gone right from being a Bruce Arians player to becoming a coach. Usually those guys sit out for a year, and that wasn't the case. He went right from or becoming like a grad assistant, if you will, like the Antoine Randall, right, where he's that offensive assistant kind of guy, not really a position coach. Larry Foote went right to becoming a position coach. So that shows you how much Bruce Arians has respect for him. The only player that Arians has coached that has done that. That shows you how highly well respected that they believe that he is. So he's got a lot of edge to him, very dynamic personality, and very aggressive guy. So I think that he would be the defensive play caller. Casey Rogers would stick to being the defensive line coach, and maybe he becomes the assistant head coach to Todd Bowles.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, and it's funny, if Arians, I wrote an article last week before the Lions game, if Arians wants to coach and Brady's retiring after next season, and Stafford at that point is pretty movable. Matt Stafford, if Matt Stafford wants to keep playing, which might be a question mark, even though he's not that old, if he wants to keep playing and his health is fine, and Bruce Arians is still coaching, I just think he's going to be a Buck. I mean, I just don't think Bruce Arians wants to draft and develop somebody. He never really has done it. He knows he's at that point where he's probably going to go, at that point, if he still wanted to coach, it'd be probably, 2 or 3 year window.
Right.
The Bucs are good enough as a team. They're not an old roster. That's the thing. Everybody's like, oh, they went all in for this season. Not really. I mean, most of their roster is still, young and still going to be good and around in a year or two. It says it's not.
It's nice to have an insurance policy, John. It's nice to have an insurance policy with having a couple guys on the staff that could step in as a new defensive coordinator if Bowles leaves, if Bowles becomes the head coach, if Arians leaves, et cetera, et cetera. And where you want to go for your insurance, John. It's
Briar Greaves.
Yeah. Yes. Our good friends at Briar Greaves. A lot of homeowners, they're canceling. These homeowner companies, they're canceling. They're not renewing policies. Some are leaving Florida. They're increasing their premiums significantly. That happened to me. I did what Mark Cook told me to do, pick up the phone, call Briar Greaves. I called 813-876-4166. I spoke directly to Briar Greaves himself. I've also spoken to Sam. Those guys would give you the personalized touch as well as the information on the best rates. And that's the cool thing. Some of these insurance companies, they're so big, there's no personal relationship. You don't know who you're talking to in the other end of the line. You can go to briargreavesinsurance.com and you can read more about that fantastic company that's family owned and it's been in the Tampa Bay area, serving the Tampa Bay area for 30 years for homeowners insurance, automobile insurance, boaters insurance, life insurance, commercial insurance, and flood insurance. If you already have insurance, you might be thinking, well, I already have it. I'm set. What do I need to do? Well, you know what? Do what I did. Call Briar Greaves and get a second opinion on your policies. Maybe you're paying too much. Maybe you need more coverage. It's always great to have a second opinion, and not just for your health, but for the health of your property. And that's what the folks at Briar Greaves can do. They're big Bucs fans. They're proud supporters of the Pewter Report podcast and pewterreport.com. So support the people that support us, Pewter Nation. Visit briargreaves.com, briargreavesinsurance.com, I should say, or call 813-876-4166 today.
We got some interesting questions, man. Old habits die hard holding on for Bucs fans. They're talking about the offseason and free agency, and we are going to talk about all this, but quickly, just a bunch of people asking what's going to happen with Gronkowski after the year. We've talked about this a little bit on the show before, Scott. The reality with Gronkowski is this: like, if he wants to keep playing, it's probably only going to be in Tampa Bay. It's hard for me to picture him being like, oh, I want to, cash out somewhere else and not win a Super. You know what I mean? Like, the Tom Brady's this guy. He came back to play. He loves the area. Like, I just think he's probably going to only want to play as long as Brady plays, and that might be just one more year. So I think he signs 1 year. I think he signs cheap, or he doesn't want to play and he retires again. We'll have to see where he's at. But here's the thing we're not talking about. Gronk has been really good this season. He's going to go up over 600 yards receiving on the year. He's got 7 touchdowns already. He has the most 20-plus yard receptions of any tight end in the league this season. He's just been awesome. Like, he's made you put up his best 10 catches from this season against any other tight end in the league, and you're going to be like, wow. I mean, he could put up 1,000 yards if he were in an offense, that focused on him like he wasn't the Patriots. He's a beast, man. I mean, he just beat solo coverage and made an unbelievable combat catch in the game against the Lions. He can still play. He could still be a top 5 tight end in the league, to be honest. Like, that's crazy.
I agree, John.
That's who he is.
I think he takes a little bit less to stay. He's having fun. He's being productive. And
not the veteran minimum like people are talking about.
No. But I think about half of what he's making now. He's making $9 million. I think $5 million. I think he's back for one more final hurrah with Tom Brady.
And again, all this adds up to, and we'll talk about this more, all this adds up to, they're just not, if they're going to bring back Shaq Barrett and Lavonte David, Chris Godwin, and Rob Gronkowski, even if the rates for Godwin and Gronk are lower than people think they'll be, which I think they will be, It's not going to happen if you keep Donovan Smith and Ryan Jensen at their current contracts. You can get out of those deals. They're going to have to evaluate health for both of them at the end of the season, especially for Jensen, and they're going to see where things are at with both of them. But it's just hard to be paying double digit millions to those guys.
Hard to pay over $6 million for Cam Brate too. He took a pay cut.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's gone. Yeah, as much as I love him, there's just
Mike Evans
coming back.
Is Mike Evans a top 5 receiver, John, in the league?
Wow, you really gonna feel that to me? Like I'm not gonna get stoned to death by Bucs fans if I. He's not a top 5 receiver, but he's a top 10 receiver. So be happy with that.
This year, given his production and also the fact he's been banged up, I think the fact he's been banged up, the fact that Tom Brady didn't have that full offseason to get really in sync with him, I think that's played a role in the fact that he's still chasing 1,000 yards heading into the final game of the season. So I think he's got a top 5 talent, but he's had the production of a top 10 receiver. In my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, he's still really good, but again, I just think about things I value in a wide receiver. This isn't really a knock on him, but I just value guys who create with the ball in their hands, and that's not really him. And I value guys who can move around, and he's getting closer to that. Honestly, he's done a really nice job lately in the slot. He's starting to understand that more, but there are more ways to stop Mike Evans than there are other guys in the league, although he's honestly still getting better. And so that's huge. But I mean, if you're talking about just pure vertical threats, like, he's awesome. He's a great player. Like, obviously I'm saying top 10 receiver in the league in a golden era of receivers right now. I mean, like he's, all obviously for Hall of Fame or first ballot. I just think that, there are other guys I would value a little bit more because they do a little bit more. So that's just how I view the position.
We're going to wrap up our Victory Monday Bucs Q&A with this last one here from Housewide Juke. John Scott, given what you've seen the last 2 weeks, would you still change the coaching staff if you had the choice? If so, who would you hire? Well, no, I think right now you can't argue with the results. The possibility of going 11-5. I liked the changes. And John, real quick, educate our viewers and listeners out there. You asked a very good question to Bruce Arians about the adjustments they've made coming out of the bye week, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Right. Yeah. They were really one of the worst first down teams in the NFL. I wrote about it actually right during the bye. I wrote about how bad they were on first down. I wrote about how much they needed to throw more on early downs and use more play action, and they need to solve protection issues. And I'm going to write about all of those three things, not protection issues so much as answers for pressure. A lot of the time it's your concepts that need to change, not your offensive line playing better. That's probably the most misunderstood things for fans. They see pressure and they just blame the O-line. There are so many layers to it, and it's often not on the O-line at all. And so those were things they needed to change, and they have made progress in all 3 areas. So I asked Bruce Arians just about first downs and what the direction kind of was coming out of the bye. And he mentioned that it was a big priority for them to get better on first down and to get more first downs on first and second down rather than third downs. Going into the bye, I believe the Bucs were leading the league or right in your top 3 in the league in third down attempts. That's not great because it means you're always in third down, and you don't want to always be in third down because even the best teams on third down are converting less than 50% of the time. So if that's the case, then you're just not sustaining offense consistently. And so it was really important for them to solve first down issues, throw the ball more, use more play action, run less, because that was one of the biggest issues. They were running very unsuccessful. They were the 30th ranked team in success rate running the ball on first down. So they just weren't getting anything on first down, and that was killing them. And
you know what? The thing is there was a time when John Gruden was being considered as the replacement for Dirk Cutter, and it ultimately went a different direction to Bruce Arians, and I think it certainly paid off with this long-awaited playoff berth. John, I don't think in hindsight John Gruden coming back to Tampa Bay for Gruden 2.0 would work out. It certainly hasn't worked out. His return to the Raiders organization, John, he has got a worse record through 3 years than Jack Del Rio or Tom Cable, the most recent Raiders coaches that also lasted to the end of their third year. Del Rio was 25-23 with a 52% winning percentage. That's a good mark. Cable was 17-27, a 38.6% winning percentage. John Gruden in 3 years with the Raiders, 2 out in Oakland, the first year here in Las Vegas, 18-29, a 38.3%, right behind Tom Cable. So I think the Buccaneers ultimately did the right thing, getting Bruce Arians out of retirement. That's another credit to Jason Light, who not only got Tom Brady here, but kind of did the catalyst to help get Brady here by getting the quarterback whisperer out of retirement, saying, hey, I know Lake Oconee is great, Bruce, but you're going to enjoy coming back to football for another couple years in Tampa. Then you can retire to Lake Oconee. And that's worked out for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, and just to close this out, I think the no coaching changes necessarily. There are things and ways the coaching staff needs to grow. I'm rarely going to be one to say fire this person or change this person because there's a lot I don't see that I can't account for with that. Bruce Arians, from all counts and purposes that I've ever heard, is a really culture guy and a really good leader. And it's obvious in the type of locker room Tampa Bay has. And that is valuable and probably more valuable than I can quantify not being in that situation. And so that's important to me to consider. And that's why rarely you'll see me, say, got to move on from this coach or got to, I think you need a large sample size to be able to say that. And the Bucs are changing. They're growing as a staff and as a team, and that needs to be given time to work itself out with Tom Brady at quarterback. It might not have, and the other part of it is, who are you going to get? Who do you know you're going to get that's going to be better? It just, it's too hard to play that game. Everybody's like, oh, Josh McDaniels. I don't want Josh McDaniels. He may call a little bit of a better offensive design. Maybe. I don't even know if that's the case, to be honest. But you want that guy leading your locker room? No, no chance. Don't even want to talk about Josh McDaniels, to be honest. So I'm rolling with this coaching staff, and I'm hoping that they continue to get better and they continue to realize that they need to change things like they have out of the bye to a degree. And if that continues to grow, then I think they're going to be moving in the right direction heading into next season, and we'll see how this season finishes up.
I agree. And John, we're going to see how the Bucs stack up against the Falcons Wednesday, 4:00 for the next edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Make sure that you subscribe to us here on YouTube at youtube.com/Pewter Report TV. Click on the subscribe button, then click on notifications, and boom, every time that we go live, you're going to get that cool notification. You can also watch us on Twitter and Facebook. We also stream live there. And if you want the audio version, you can go to our SoundCloud downloads on pewterreport.com, and you can have the audio version and take it with you wherever you go. So, John, another great show today. Great questions, super chats from our awesome, loyal Pewter Report readers. And you know what, John? The last show of the year is Wednesday.
That's right.
This is the right one. So we're not doing Wednesday Pewter Report podcast until all the way into 2021. So
Wednesday and Thursday we'll have them.
We do
Thursday? Not Thursday, right? Because New Year's Day, I forgot.
Just Wednesday, and then we're going to have a Falcons Bucs recap podcast. 7:30 on Sunday night after the Buccaneers conclude.
And we'll have like a little, won't be a watch party, but there'll be a little bit of a, who's going to win that game is going to determine the Bucs' next playoff opponent.
Right.
And so, or for playoff opponent. So that's going to be an important one to keep our eye on as well. So lots of good content coming. Wednesday, 4 p.m. We'll be back. We'll be breaking down Bucs Falcons. We will go in depth on this game. It does matter. It just doesn't matter quite as much as staying healthy. So we'll have our fingers crossed. We'll hope that those kind of decisions are being made and the players stay safe or wherever for this upcoming game. So until then, thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast.